Everyone says how horrible it will be to renovate or build your house. We're here to say it doesn't have to be that way. Join 3 seasoned architects as they interview homeowners who recently completed a large project and ask them one simple question. What do you know now that you wish you knew before you started? Welcome to Home, the Second Story podcast.
Hi, and welcome to a snack-sized episode of Home, the Second Story. I'm Sherry Scott from Cincinnati, along with...
I'm Marilyn Modinger from Lancaster, Pennsylvania and Boston, Massachusetts.
And I am Taylor Davis from Birmingham, Alabama.
This episode is going to be about Teams, not Microsoft.
Not Microsoft.
Teams.
No. Or football teams. We're starting on football season.
Or football
it could be
teams.
football
Season.
teams. It's about football season.
What does a team look like in a big construction project? The obvious ones to us, anyway, are architect and contractor. But there are a lot of people that contribute and consult and help us along in these processes that a lot of times the architect is in charge of gathering and directing.
On a lot of our projects, and we do a lot of pretty complex renovations in the Boston area, and Massachusetts has very strict energy codes. So that often means that we are required to provide a HERS rating. A HERS rater is, they work in all 50 states. I mean, it's a thing that's nationwide, but it is required in Massachusetts. So one of the first people we have on every project is a HERS rater. And that person helps us, they build an energy model of the house, and that's required. And then we use that information to help us make decisions about insulation and other details and windows and equipment and things like that. So that person is almost always on a job for us. And I would say our other one that we often have is civil engineer. So someone who's helping us figure out anything related to the site or utilities, and structural engineer. On our crazy renovations, there's all kinds of very creative structural solutions. So we have a structural engineer we would like to work with. And I'd say our next biggest one that we usually have on a lot of projects is a mechanical engineer. So we like to keep all of our designs for HVAC systems in-house, and we do not prefer to do design build with contractors because it's just very complicated. And they're often not designed right when the subcontractor does it. So, and again, to meet the stringent energy codes, it's really important. So those are our big ones. And I would say that of all those people, as I was naming them, I'm picturing the guys that I work, well, they're all guys, I guess. So guys in this case, I'm picturing each of the guys, and many of them I've had relationships with for 10 years, just really wonderful working relationships where I call them up and I'm like, hey, got another one. Let's get the band back together. But that's who I'm often working with on our projects, engineering wise. And I hire them, except for the civil engineer. Client always hires a civil engineer.
Similarly, we do not have HERS rating requirements in Alabama, sort of unfortunately. And that means that because there's not a market, there aren't a whole lot of mechanical engineers that do residential work.
Yeah, it's rare.
So that is something we really kind of struggle with. We always, well, not always, but a lot of times have civil. And if we're working in larger sites, we have a geotech engineer come in too, or because a lot of times we are not on sewer lines, we have to do perk tests for septic systems. So we may have a septic engineer that comes in and does that. Structural we use on most of our projects. And I would say, from the perspective of the homeowner who is thinking about this going like, okay, there's X amount of dollars that I've got to allocate for this and X amount of dollars that I've allocated for that. As Marilyn noted, a lot of times some of these engineering fees are incorporated into the architect's fee. So you're not like shelling out bills, checks to like 25 different people on the site all the time.
They're not in my fee.
But I mean, but you're paying them correct?
I am, but I pass that on to the owners.
But they're not writing a separate check. Is kind of what I'm saying.
Correct. They run check to me, and then I distribute.
You organize that. It's kind of like the general contractor organizing his subcontractors. So it's the same thing. So it's not like tons of bills that you're going to get and be like, oh my God, here's another bill from the...
Or coordination. They don't have to, I'm coordinating their work. I'm coordinating them going to the site. I'm a ton of work.
It's a lot of work. So I think making that clear that this might sound overwhelming to a homeowner to hear tick, 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 tick. That's our job to deal with the overwhelm. And we don't want to pass that sort of anxiety onto you. We kind of handle that. But those people are really important, and they each have very particular expertises that they bring to a job. And a lot of times, like Marilyn noted, those are required by the municipality or the state, or sometimes you'll see the initials AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction. So that's like the building inspector or whoever is issuing your certificate of occupancy or whatever that is. Those people are required to be a part of the project. So while it may feel like it's a lot, and it is, it's generally us. I would also add to it landscape architect. We have them come in a lot for our projects.
Yep.
And then other team members that you may, have some, if there's a specialty that you want to have on your project, whether that's a consultant for lighting or a consultant because you want some particular special type of construction, that we're going to be better off talking to somebody who does it every day as opposed to something that we do it's pools. Yeah, whatever that is. So there may be some special people that are brought in particular for the team.
Yeah, you guys have named off a lot of them. I think most of them that Marilyn named are on almost every single project, right? And they're kind of baked into the whole process, and we're used to doing that. And then Taylor started touching on more consultant type people that we might bring in. Some of those people work and get paid within their product.
Right.
We've worked with lighting designers both ways, where some lighting designers get paid within their product. And then other ones are truly designers, and you hire them to design it. They don't sell any product. And, we can have a whole conversation about all of that.
Yeah, that's a whole
another
thing.
time. We'll go down that rabbit hole real fast. A couple other ones that I've used in the past are a security consultant. If you're doing some security at your house, audio visual, AV guys.
Oh, yes.
And that's another rabbit hole.
Yep.
And they do great, great things and really do add to the project.
What's interesting is that all of these folks, whether they're engineers or consultants, or some mix of both, they're adding something to the project. They're extending and amplifying our reach, because we as architects are sort of the jack of all trades.
Right.
And we can speak the language of all these people, but we are not fluent in the same way that they are. So our job is to bring together when deep expertise is needed. I mean, I can do a data plan, I can do your basic AV plan, but if it's something more in depth, then we do need, more consultant sort of firepower. But that's where a good architect, a good designer comes in, is to marshal all of that and make sure that all the chess pieces are where they need to be, and that the big picture of the project isn't lost. I also want to add like some weirdo consultant things that I've consulted for people. So I have a whole wing of my business is just consulting. So I've consulted on gyms because I have a background in lifting and gym stuff, like that kind of stuff. So I've consulted on gym layouts. We've worked with art consultants. So people who are figuring out like the right place to hang a special piece of art or special antiques or sculpture. So that's something we've worked with. And that is combined with the lighting consultant to figure out how to get all that to work together. We've also worked with healthy building materials consultants, which when we've worked with folks who have specific allergies or sensitivities that are far beyond sort of, I'm just allergic to this one chemical or something, but that are very, very sensitive. And that was super enlightening. And I think part of it that's fun as an architect is you're learning all this stuff as you go as well. So I don't want to make it sound like we don't know it, but we don't know it to the same level as someone who consults on it every day. But every time we're on one of those projects, now I know X amount more to bring to my next client and help
Right.
with them.
Yeah.
Which I think is
Right.
pretty cool.
Yeah, one of my first bosses, they described the job of an architect as a conductor, like an orchestral conductor, and like bring some people in and put some people farther back, and at the right time, right? It has to come in at the right time.
And what's also works about that metaphor is that the conductor basically knows how to play each instrument, but they're not going to be the best in the world at that instrument. Like the person who's playing the first chair violin, like that's a world-class player. The orchestra conductor isn't going to be the world-class violin player, but they're going to be the world-class person at bringing everyone together and making it coherent. So yes, agreed. As we give ourselves compliments about what we're good at.
Well, I don't think there's just too many compliments. I also think too, like we didn't touch on like, there's other, like, other than consultants and the people that we bring to the table, there's also the contractor and the builder. And like, they have their own team of people that they're going to bring to a project too. So they may bring their own like pricing, people who specialize in bring their pricing to the table. And so you may show up in a meeting with a contractor with their pricing person who's in charge of it. They're going to have their superintendents. They're going to, in addition to their subs, they're going to be bringing particular folks to the team, and they may want to bring in a specialist of a particular type of construction. A lot of times we get a waterproofing consultant out on the site if we've got a slope or it's gross or muddy or whatever it is. So like building envelope consultants, like some of those people will appear as particular things emerge over the course of a project. And sometimes the contractors will bring those folks to the table too. Having worked on big projects and small projects, I love them all. I love it when there is a group of people who have worked together, regardless of the size of the project, to the benefit of the owner and the project. And the owner at the end is like knows all of our names and is excited to like see us on a regular basis, regardless of whether that's the civil engineer or the structural engineer, whoever that is. So getting that team together, I worry because I don't want people to just see dollar signs when they hear all of these terms thrown out. It's not really that. It's more that we're bringing together expertise to make your project better.
I want to speak to that real quick too. Like a lot of these things, like a geotech or a waterproofing engineer or a consultant or whatever, they come on the project, they do their thing, and they're gone. It's not you have 25 consultants for the duration of the project. And then, here's part two of what I'll say too to owners is sometimes owners will hear all this stuff and they'll say, yeah, well, but my friend's neighbor's buddy's sister's uncle is a structural engineer. He's going to give me a good price. I want you to work with him. And I'm like, no, because the $1,000 you're going to save by paying this guy directly, I will now have to deal with. Like you want the team, the orchestra that has practiced together, the football team that has practiced together. Like you want that team who knows each other really, really well. You're paying the same rate you would pay someone off the street, like if you walked into the door at a structural engineer, but you're getting a team that has collaborated for years and many, many projects and knows each other. And I think that's also really important. And it's a way that I see owners sometimes trying to save money because it freaks them out. And I get it. The architect, they're already like, I have to pay an architect. And then the architect's like, here's my list of 6 engineers I'm going to need. That sounds scary. And I get that. But you don't want to kind of make that worse by trying to save 10% or something by the owner hiring those people directly, and then the architect can't get the answers they need. The project is delayed. Like it's a big mess. So that synergy of having a team that worked together before is actually incredibly valuable.
Yeah, good point. And Marilyn, one thing that you said, you don't do design build with your contractors. And I would say, once again, we do things differently here in Ohio. Almost every single project does design build for what we call MEP. And I think I'm going to take a second to try to unpack all of that. So MEP, because this is a question I get on almost every contract I send out, which tells me I probably should rewrite that section. But mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, plumbing engineer. You can hire an engineering firm to do mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Mechanical is your heating and air conditioning. In our area, the subcontractor, so the plumber, does their own drawings and gets their own permit. The electrician does their own drawings, gets their own permit, and the HVAC guy does the same thing. We provide them shell drawings so that they can execute those drawings on top of our drawings, so everything is drawn correctly and the right distances and everything's cohesive that way. So my contract says we include structural engineer because we want to work hand in hand with the structural engineer to make sure that the design is getting executed the way that we have designed it. But the MEP stuff, we do not include that in our contract because that gets covered through the build, through the separate subcontractors.
That's the way we do it too, Sherry.
Yeah, I want to clarify. I do not have electrical and plumbing engineers on my projects. That is only for like big commercial projects. So when I say we don't do design build, I mean for mechanical. So for HVAC. But we draw a switch plan, an electrical plan, and a plumbing plan. We draw it ourselves. And again, I think that's the difference between our work. So I'm working in this extremely difficult renovation environment where one of the first things we have to do is figure out where the toilets go, because I have like maybe one path if I am creative and scratching my head for 8 hours to think through how am I going to get that waistline down. There are not many options. I have to design the house around the MEP in that sort of situation, and I cannot leave that to a design build. They will do all kinds of crazy things. Like they'll say, oh yeah, we're just going to drop the whole ceiling on the first floor and run everything. I'm like, we're not having 7'6" ceilings, boys. We're not.
Even on new builds, they suggest that.
Of course they do, because they want whatever is easiest for them. So that's why when I say I'm full service, like I am super full service because we do that. And I recognize that isn't the way that it is in every market. But I do want to clarify, like we don't have an electrical. There's no need for an electrical engineer or a plumbing engineer on a residential project unless it's like a really, really big, crazy one.
Yeah, we've had two projects recently where we did do full MEPs with a engineering firm, and it made sense for that project.
And also FP probably too.
Yeah.
You have to have FP on those big ones. Fire protection, sprinklers.
We do not.
Oh, well, we have to.
In Ohio.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do though. You guys are under, if it's over 4 stories or if it's over
4 stories, yes, it's certain square footages, but there's also, depending on the municipality, nobody in Alabama does sprinkle for single family.
You know where it's required is a Mountain West.
Yeah, and in New Jersey, I think you have to do it too. I think that they're doing new construction. All the Habitat homes are all sprinkled.
It's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It is wild, and it's gotten a lot better. But your market will dictate a lot of the types of services that the architects you talk to bring to the table. So, and like I said, a lot of that is predicated on what the requirements of the authority having jurisdiction are. So you will, it just depends on where you are that you'll find what they bring to the table is important in terms of their contract.
And what's expected too, like what's sort of culturally or market expected. And that's why this is one of our themes we always return to, but having a local architect is important. Because if I show up in Ohio and I'm like, let me bring in my Massachusetts ways of doing things, that doesn't work, right? So we do it all the time in Lancaster versus Boston. It's totally different ways of working, and that's fine. Yeah. That is completely fine. And it's not one is better than the other, or although if you get us all around the table drinking a couple glasses of wine, we'll be like, well, this way is better or whatever. Like, that's fine. There is that conversation. But ultimately, I think that's why it matters to get local people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So they're not doing the wrong thing for you where you are.
Yeah. And so if you're in a suburb of Atlanta, I don't know why I picked Atlanta, but if you're in a suburb of Atlanta, you might not, and your architect does not bring a full MEP set to the table. They are not insufficient. It just might not be something that's expected.
Yeah.
So don't listen to that and think otherwise.
Thanks for joining us today on Home, the Second Story for a quick snack. Questions for us, topics you'd like us to cover, or interested in being a guest? reach out at admin@htsspodcast.com. Thanks, and see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Home, the Second Story podcast. Feel free to share this episode with a friend. Contact information for all three of our architects are in our show notes. And don't miss future episodes. Follow or subscribe to our show for free in Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now.